There's periods during your marriage. Your wife may go through hormonal changes and she may go through menopause. And by the way, it ain't purty.
Yeah, and there's no books for husbands how to deal with that. One thing I learned is definitely don't start a podcast the same time your wife goes into menopause. That can be a real tricky situation.
Don't do it.
How did you know that I was the one? Our viewers and listeners out there might be thinking about getting married. And was there a certain sign? Was it a way that I held your hand or that I kissed you or did I make you laugh in a certain way? How do you know when that person's the right one to make that big of commitment to? Did you know with me right away?
I didn't. At first, I did not. I was very unsure. But I will say within a few months, I think we met in February. And we were living together on top of Circle Pizza in Avalon, New Jersey. And I remember that was June, calling my parents from a payphone saying, this is the guy I'm going to marry. And I think it was the way you made me feel. Besides humor, always making me laugh, you always made me feel really good about me no matter what.
Okay, because with me, it was love at first sight. Right away, I knew you were the one. Maybe it was fireworks went off, but I remember telling my father the day after I met you, I said, I think I met the one. I knew you were the one that I wanted to marry. But are there signs out there?
I don't know that everyone gets fireworks. So I don't think that's necessary. I think it's fantastic you did, but I don't know that that's for everybody. Other people may have different signs or not signs at the beginning. So I think everyone has their story.
And I think there's a lot of pressure too with marriage because everyone thinks that's what you're supposed to do. I know back in the day, I was young and I said to myself, I want to get married. You were in college. You weren't looking for someone. At the time, I sort of was. I felt like that was the next step because you ought to get married was the thing to do, right? Wasn't that like the in thing?
In those days, you're in your 20s, you're out of college, you're going to get married. Nowadays, I think too, the kids feel pressured. Like if everyone has boyfriends and the young 20s are getting married, they feel it's our turn. We need to find someone. And sometimes they might be settling.
Yeah, and that percentage of marriage has dropped. From 30 years ago to today, it's been about a 20% drop now. 60% less people get married now than they did 30 years ago, which is a big number.
It is.
Now, I had a relative. Her name was Hoppy. Do you remember Hoppy?
Oh, I remember. I think she was your dad's aunt. She was a bit of a hoarder.
Yes,
And we would pick her up for special occasions with your grandmother. I do remember her.
But she was never married. She went her entire life not married, and I always thought that was kind of weird because, again, you're brought up thinking that you go get married one day, and that
I don't
was
think
the natural
it is weird.
thing.
I think a lot of people don't get married now, and it's becoming normal.
Yeah, I remember Hoppy had this one thing, and you were right. She was a hoarder. But I remember on Christmas, she used to give us these used books that she'd already have at her house, and she'd wrap them, and she would have no idea if we were interested in those stories or not, but we would get these books. So what I would do at my house at Christmas, after she would give it to us, before I would leave, I would put it under like my parents' or my sister's pillow in the bed because I'm thinking, I don't need this book.
She could rewrap it for the next year.
But I remember that with Hoppy, and you were right. She was a hoarder. She always kept a lot of things, but maybe that's when you're a single person. Guess what? When you're single, you can do whatever you want.
You can be selfish.
Yes, that's a definite. Now, you dated the same guy in high school for 4 years.
Yes.
How did you not know he was the one?
I don't think you know at that stage of life. There's a few people that I still know that married through high school and they have a phenomenal marriage and family now, but I think that's a very small amount of people, but you really don't know. Your mind's in a different place. So when I went away to school.
But did you ever have any thoughts when you were with him? Like, man, I think I'll probably marry you. You were with him for 4 years. That's a long time.
It probably goes through your mind. And then you go away and you realize, wow, there's different people out here. You know, I'm in a whole different area now.
So you grew up, he was your high school sweetheart, but again, you grew up in a small town.
Yeah.
So that kind of limited you to know what was out there on a broader spectrum. And
so it's good to know for people that maybe are in high school and they never left their hometown and you're thinking, well, this is what I know. Sometimes it becomes habit. So sometimes it's good if you're not going to go to college and go away from home, try to travel a little, try to meet different groups that are outside of your community.
Do you know when man and woman meet in high school, only 2% of them actually get married?
Small amounts.
And when they do get married, there are a higher percentage of them to get divorced than people that meet after high school.
I could see that.
Yeah, it's like 20%
Because
higher than
you're
the national
so young,
average also.
really don't know for the most part.
But there's a pressure there to get married. Seeing their friends get married, they've seen your parents. You start to feel like you're getting too old.
You do.
But there
Or
is
you
no
feel
age.
like you're not fitting in. I think that's a big thing. And again, I can't say it enough. People are settling.
But that sort of leads us into our show today, what they don't tell you about marriage. That's an exciting topic because guess what? When you jump into marriage,
What to expect when you're expecting, same type of thing.
yeah, there's no book on it.
No.
And when you jump into marriage, there's going to be things that pop up.
And you will not know till you get there. You cannot think it's going to go great or think, oh, this is going to happen. You have to play it out. I always recommend, my personal opinion is always living together for as long as you can.
That's a good way to.
Not everybody believes in that, but I strongly suggest
it eliminates some of the surprises.
Oh, yeah.
And
Lots
one of
of
those
surprises
is, guess what? When you get married, you lose something right away. And
independence.
Yes, you lose your independence.
Like we talked about Poppy being selfish. You could be so selfish when you're not married. And some people love that. And it's very difficult. You can have someone that's extremely needy, and that could be trying. I know couples and their husband, they walk around like with the tail between their legs, just waiting if they're not at their beck and call. That could be difficult if you're an independent person.
Yeah, and now you have two people making decisions too.
Yes.
Where you're going to go, what you're going to do. You don't have that freedom to just get up and run. You have to see what your partner wants to do as well. And then there's the privacy too of leaving the bathroom door open. I know that was new for you.
Yeah, you love leaving the door open.
I leave the bathroom door open to me.
And the seat up for years. And also like just putting, clothes down thinking, oh, someone will pick them up. She'll pick them up. We learned for us, every man for himself. That doesn't always work in certain households, but again, communicating. Do you mind putting the seat down and just using your words? It seems easy, but I guess it's not easy for all. But if you try that, you may work better as a team.
And when you go to bed at night, you like having the TV on.
Yes.
And to me, I need it pitch dark and I need it completely quiet. You like a light on and you like the TV on. So again, that's something that you don't necessarily know before you start living with someone after you're married.
Yes.
So habits come into this now because we all bring habits into a relationship, and there may be, believe it or not, a habit or two that I have that you don't like.
Oh, this is such a joyful thing that you do to most. And we mentioned before, Gary would hum like nobody's business. And it was like screeching your nails on a chalkboard. To me, I'm not a patient person, but other people would think this is lovely. But you worked on it. You're like, it feels good on my mouth. And then eventually you make a decision and you're done. You're like, I'm not going to hum anymore. And all of a sudden you don't hum anymore.
I feel like it gave me something to do. Like if
you were bored.
I always like to be doing something. So if I wasn't doing something, I said to myself, well, let me hum.
Okay.
But I went cold turkey on that.
You did.
Because you brought it to my attention.
You'd be good as a smoker or drinker because you know how to go cold turkey.
After about 25 years, I said to myself, you know what? I'm just not going to hum anymore. And I do not think I've hummed ever since I said that.
And I have some habits that probably drive you on.
Oh, come on now. No.
Just a few.
Here's one that I can think of is how about when we go to a restaurant and we'll sit down at the table and the waiter will come over and the first thing you'll say to him is, what drink do you recommend? What drink do you have that you recommend? Now, this is after talking to me and telling me the 2 or 3 drinks you were definitely getting. But a lot of times this waiter who you'll ask, he'll be like 17 years old and he'll be like,
no clue.
I don't even drink. But then you hit him after that with, what's your favorite meal on the menu?
That drives you nuts. I think we rehearsed that on the way. You're like, could you do me a favor and not mention a drink? You know you're going to get a dirty martini, an espresso martini, or a Bloody Mary. Why would you try changing it up? Because I always think it looks so good and appealing when I see people with these other drinks. I'm never happy once I go to another drink. And the same with the menu. Whenever I get the special or something different, it never works out. So you are 100% correct. And I do try to work on it, but I think I could do better working on that habit.
Yeah. And before we go out, there's a neat little thing that you always seem to do. And that is you'll come in with 2 different outfits on and you'll say to me, which one do you like better? Do you like this one? Do you like this one? And it's a no-win situation for me.
Lose.
Because as soon as I say I like that one, you're like, well, why didn't you like the other one?
Did it make me look big? That's stuff that you still, carry on. through probably childhood that maybe if we nix that, I will get better with that.
Yeah, and we're bringing up funny ones that
Yes.
maybe you can get over. But there are habits that sometimes when you get married you didn't know about, like how maybe alcohol affects your spouse. Do they have depression, anxiety, things that
Maybe
pop
they're
up?
really sloppy or they're
Yes,
hoarders and you're like, I didn't expect,
right.
the closet to be filled up and they're so sloppy. They leave dishes in with food on. And that's a big thing to someone that's not like that.
Yeah, spending, drugs, there's other things
And you
too.
do not know all the time till you're in it.
No, you definitely don't. And then there's that thing when you get married, it reminds me of the movie. Do you remember the movie The Heartbreak Kid?
Favorite. Like that is one of my favorites. If you have not seen that, you have to watch it. It's Ben Stiller.
Yes, go out and watch that movie. And that was actually a remake of an earlier version, Heartbreak Kid. But the basic plot is this guy gets married. He was only dating a few months, which happens. A lot of people sometimes get married pretty quickly. And he didn't really know the ins and outs of his spouse right away. So he's on the honeymoon, and there's a lot of traits that pop up that start to annoy him.
Immediately.
So on his honeymoon, he falls in love with another woman and eventually, very quickly, leaves his wife for this
She's
other
adorbs.
woman. She is. But the bottom line is things change. Like, what happens if your spouse gets comfortable as soon as you get married?
And they start blowing up.
Yeah, or they let themselves go.
Guilty. I think I blew up 4 or 5 times during our
Yes.
38 years.
Yes.
And I remember having kids and I'd put on 60 pounds and I'd lose some, I'd gain some. I blew up like a tick. You never judged. You never gave me a hard time. You still loved me the way you always did. I, on the other hand, if that was the opposite, I would be judgmental. I would probably think different things because I think differently than you do. So what if the spouse thinks like me? And it again, it's very surface, but you just don't know till you're in it. And sometimes people will let themselves go. They become disheveled. They just don't care.
What if you're a freak about always being on time?
Oh, yes.
And then all of a sudden, you didn't know this about your spouse, but they seem to linger. They take a while. That could start
and
to...
you're holding up other people.
That could start to be very difficult. Or if your spouse is moody and you
Yes.
didn't know that, and all of a sudden, one day they're super happy, the next day they're down in the dumps.
And they come home from work and they're a little poopy face. I don't want to
Yeah.
talk right now. It was a rough day at work. And then you're like, this is not fun. So again, things that are unexpected, but you can talk through. You're not trying to change the person, but you're
Right.
trying to work together to make it comfortable to live together.
I remember in that movie, The Heartbreak Kid, one of the characters says to Ben Stiller, if you want to know what your wife's going to look like when she gets older,
Look at her mother.
just look at her mother. And you could probably do that with the father as well. Because a lot of times you'll say to me, hey, you're starting to look like your father.
Oh, you look identical to your father. You do. He's very young looking.
How about when you wake up in the morning? What if your spouse, every time you dated, always wore makeup?
And then you see them without makeup and you're like, whoa, what just happened?
That could be a big
Yeah,
surprise.
yeah. I know a girl, she goes to sleep with her makeup. She gets up. The husband never sees her without makeup. Very interesting. It's whatever works.
So in other words, she'll get up before her husband wakes up, jump into the bathroom and quick put the
Yes,
makeup
redo
on.
her makeup.
Man, that
So
sounds
she doesn't
like
wash her face at night. She does it in the morning.
that sounds like a major hassle. But let's face it, when you get married, you're not just marrying the spouse, you're marrying their entire family. And that can be
In
a
some
big
situations.
issue.
What if some of them become professional lurkers and they come over and they don't know when to leave?
Right.
And then the spouse feels uncomfortable saying, we'd like some of our own time, just some downtime. Or if your family members start to need money and you're giving them money, or there's dinners every weekend and different occasions, and you're never having time for your friends or yourself.
Yes, yes. And you have difficulty saying no to your family, but you have come up with a saying that works. And I like this saying.
It's called a definite maybe. My brother taught me this and I use it around the clock.
So when someone comes up to you and says, hey, Wendy, we're doing dinner with the family tonight. Are you interested? You end up answering,
I'm a definite maybe. And it takes the pressure off. There's no, I'm going to cancel. I don't feel like going. Sometimes you want to wing it and do a game day decision, especially as we get older. I'm a definite maybe in any situation. And I remember when we met years ago, my family had a lot of functions. And I remember one day you were like, I'm not going. I just don't feel like it. And I'm like, well, what are you going to say? And you were like, I don't feel like it. I'm like, you can't say that. We have to think of something. So you taught me we don't need excuses if we don't want to go. We just say, you know what? We're going to spend some time together. We're not up for it. We'll catch you the next time. Say a positive first, and then be true to yourself. People will understand and they'll get it if you keep doing it consistently.
Do you remember the movie Uncle Buck?
Yes, my brothers named that as well.
We named him Uncle Buck. He happens to be actually a great relative who we love spending
He's
time
fun.
with.
I mean,
but,
when he lurks, he's a fun lurker.
But he does have a tendency to stay places a long time. He'll get comfortable.
He gets himself in trouble. He says things probably he shouldn't. And we love that about him. And
Right.
usually there's an apology the next day. And that's a family thing.
Yeah, and there's usually a conversation between the two of you after every family event.
For hours.
That you have to go over every little issue that may have come up.
Yes.
And how about family vacations, too? How do people get out of that situation? Do you have to take 2 or 3 vacations, one by yourselves, one with your family?
I think there's nothing wrong. Even early, when you're uncomfortable with your in-laws, you could say, that sounds great. Maybe we could do a weekend, but we're going to do our own thing, or we're going to take our kids by ourselves. And luckily, we enjoy our families. We like being with them. We like spending time with them.
We love it.
We do know how to use our words after 38 years.
Yeah, and then here's a very interesting one, and this one could change once you're married. Your sex life.
Yes.
Sex could be amazing when you're first dating. You could be having it every night, just every morning, you name it, having sex all the time. But what happens when one of the spouses, after you get married, all of a sudden puts the brakes on that?
They're tired.
Yeah.
They don't have energy.
Things come up.
They're
My job.
hormonal.
Exactly. That could be a big thing when people start to come up with excuses for sex, especially if one of the spouses was like expecting it more often.
Right, because that may have been how you did things at the beginning, and then it could change. So again, there was a period for us where we were trying to get pregnant. I think we were on a schedule.
Yes, and that put pressure on me. Like I could be cleaning out the garage at 2 PM, and you'd be like, "Come on in," which I was kind of very excited about, and that was really cool. But again,
You have to perform.
yeah, because at that time we were having fertility issues.
Exactly.
So we had to do that. Now I know a guy who actually has his sex and with his wife scheduled once a week at a certain time. To me, that's when sex becomes maintenance.
Yes,
You lose
it's a
the
job.
I feel like when you're first dating, sex is more spontaneous.
Yes.
Once you get married, it becomes a point around your time.
So you may want to make a point, make it spontaneous from the beginning, the middle, and the end of your marriage. Work on that as hard as you do with your habits.
Another thing that's maybe not talked about before you get married is how about the number of kids you're going to have? Because I know in our situation, I wanted 3 or 4 children. You wanted 1.
I think we compromised that too, but there's some people that want 0.
Yeah.
Something to definitely talk about. You could change as you go along, but if your spouse is like, I definitely don't want kids, I think it's something you should talk about before getting married.
Now, I know nobody does this, but there are questionnaires out there, the compatibility tests. There's certain things you could do before you get married. But you know what? Again, that takes kind
I
of
don't think people do.
No, nobody does it. And that takes the spontaneity away from the marriage, too.
Right.
And the fun and the
Make
excitement.
it a fun challenge.
Yeah, sometimes surprise is more exciting.
Right.
Even though it can lead to certain situations. Like, for one instance, you always grew up with a dog. I noticed that right away. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is fantastic. She has a dog. When I say I'm ready for a dog, she's going to jump on that. Little did I know, you didn't really like your dog.
I don't like dogs at all. I'm allergic. I'm afraid. So that was a definite no.
It was, but you did compromise.
I did. We did have a dog, a boxer for 12 years?
Yes.
15 years?
Yes.
And I did very well. Then we had an Old English Bulldog that I was highly allergic to. And our daughter Lily had asthma.
Yeah, and I couldn't get rid of the 2 of you, so I ended up having to get rid of the dog.
That was a choice. That
unfortunately.
was a big choice.
Best dog that's the best dog anyone could ever have. But you know what? Again, you learn about those things, and I never had a
I always
dog.
felt like you had iguanas and snakes and all those
I did.
type of creatures that maybe you could continue with.
But nothing replaces man's best friend.
No.
And then how about religion? Religion might be something you may want to talk about ahead of time, maybe not. But in our case,
I feel like we talked about religion.
We did.
So much. We talked to professionals. And I remember calling home from that payphone saying, this is the guy that I'm going to marry. And my parents saying, how are you going to raise the kids? That was the big thing.
They were more concerned with how are we going to raise our kids than the fact that your potential husband didn't even have a job at that time.
No, you were a trashman at the shore, I think. But I do remember that we spent so much time worrying about it. By the time we had our kids, we didn't even have religion. That was not part of our,
Neither of us were.
of their upbringing.
Right. And so neither of us really passed
You could
it on to
spend
them.
time doing it and life shifts in different directions.
Yeah, and I don't think there were a lot of hard feelings with your family on that either.
Or yours. Yours
No.
were great. I
Yeah.
mean, your father was a minister. And remember, love yourself first, and the right person will find you or you will find them. Don't feel the pressure if your friend group or your relatives all have boyfriends, girlfriends, they're getting married, and you feel like you need to be married. It's more important to find the right fit. Continue working on yourself, and things will come together like you've never imagined.
2 words to always remember in marriage: compromise and sacrifice. If you use those in your relationship, no matter what happens, you'll be able to get through it. Don't forget to go to YouTube to subscribe and like our channel, as well as TikTok. We have shorts every single day that we're posting that I know you're going to get a kick out of. So check us out on TikTok as well. It's When Gary Met Wendy, just like our YouTube channel.
Have a peaceful, positive week. Mwah.